match. Tremendous.
Oh my God. Goodwill, can you hear me now? I need you for every stream. Okay, let's just say you got to be here on every stream now because let me know if you can hear me now. I got my mic turned on now. I was brushing my hair. I was just trying to get a little bit ready before court actually started. Oh, shit. Can you hear me now? What do you think of my new display? Can you hear me now? Goodwill 619. Okay. Oh my God. Shout out to Goodwill 619 showing up on my streams and telling me to turn my damn mic on. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, during the break, I really didn't think I was going to get this to connect, but somehow I got it. I have a Twitch channel and tried to stream earlier to YouTube and Twitch at the same time, and it was just like lagging so much. And so I found this app, Restream. The only thing I don't like about Restream is like it's kind of messing with my background. But at least the optics are smooth because when I used OBS, it was and if you guys watched my stream from a couple nights ago, or maybe it was yesterday. No, it wasn't yesterday, it was Saturday. I installed more memory in my computer and I thought that would fix the issue. I think it did, but there was still a little, oh my gosh, it's just so many little technicalities that you have to kind of research. And another piece of information I found is like you have to figure out what your frame rate is. But with this app, Restream, apparently they do that part for you. So I look like I'm in HD, guys. Here we are. I'm so proud of myself. And can you hear the I think you can hear the video as well, right? Because court is in recession and they have like this elevator music playing. So hopefully you guys can hear that too, because we want to hear the closing statements when they come back from recess. So I think I played it on YouTube and I could hear it. So let me just make sure. I think you can hear the video as well, right? Because court is in recession and they have like this elevator music playing. So hopefully you guys can hear that too, because we want to hear the closing statements. When they come back from recess. Okay. I can hear the background music on the channel as well. What's up? So happy Monday. It's Easter Monday. Okay, so the trial for the cult mom, zombie mom, doomsday mom, she's got a lot of nicknames. Lori Vallow, aka sociopath, serial killer. She's got 4 bodies and counting. 4 bodies underneath her. And so this trial is for the conspiracy of not premeditation, but just conspiracy to murder. I don't know what the censorship rules are on Twitch, but to off her husband for his life insurance. That was part of the motive. The other part is she fell in love with this cult leader who has been convicted of killing or unaliving the 2 kids that she shared with Charles Vallow, who has been deceased due to Lori Vallow's actions and planning. And that's what this trial is about, is will she be convicted in her part, because she didn't actually pull the trigger. She got her brother to do it, who also is not here on this earth anymore. So she's definitely done a lot of dirt. Many of the people in her life are not here, and that's not by accident. It's definitely not by accident. Oh shit. Let me fix my shirt. Sorry. I hope you guys had a nice lunch. I did. I had leftovers from my Easter dinner yesterday. It was freaking bomb. We went to a steakhouse, so I just had some steak that I didn't finish, and it was really good. Closing arguments and verdict watch. So this trial, so Lori Vallow did, she did, gosh, I don't know all the terminology, but she agreed to her right to a speedy trial. And they have, I feel, given her very fair treatment. Everything she has asked for, the court has granted. So she asked for the speedy trial. I'm surprised that they really have stuck to a lot of the timelines and schedule, but literally this trial has only been going on for 3 weeks. They took 1 week for jury selection, and then they took 2 weeks for people to testify. And the defense, which is Lori Vallow, rested this morning, but they actually rested last week. They gave her another weekend, the past weekend, to really decide, okay, are you not going to call any witnesses on stand to testify on your behalf? And she didn't. So that just really speaks to, what people think of her. She didn't have anyone to go on stand for her and talk to her. The only thing she was able to do was cross-examine the witnesses that the state brought. So I know the burden of proof when you are charged with something lies on the prosecution. They are charging you, they are presenting a case against you. They have the burden of proof to bring the evidence. And as a defense, you can figure out what your defense is going to be. And Lori literally has just been trying to deflect. She hasn't brought any new evidence. She really didn't present anything new. She just cross-examined what the state brought against her. So we'll see how what the jury kind of surmises about that. The jury also doesn't know that Lori Vallow was convicted of unaliving her 2 kids. And so she kind of got a not so bad start to this trial. They were able to find a jury that didn't have any knowledge of her previous bad acts. That's what they call it. Like, they use this rule 405B that they will not bring in your prior convictions to your trial. So she's been convicted for unaliving 2 kids, her 2 kids, and her husband, her current husband, who was a cult leader that she met while she was married to Charles Vallow. Vallow was shot by her brother Alex Cox in her home, and it's a little bit muddy on whether she was in the house when the shots were fired. She did immediately leave the scene and took her son, who was alive at the time, took her son to school like it was another day. It was just another day. So I don't think she was in the house. Like, her children weren't aware. So, but supposedly the reason shots were fired by her brother, he's saying, is self-defense, which I call BS. BS on that. They totally planned it. Her ex-husband Charles, who this trial is for, Charles Vallow, he was in town because they were going to stage an intervention for Lori Vallow and all of her crazy religious outlandish beliefs. That he was right. Now Charles has been killed. After he passed away, the 2 children were offed. And also, mysteriously, her brother, which is the one that actually fired the shots, about 6 months later, he had some sort of aneurysm and unexpectedly passed away as well. And her current husband, Chad Daybell, is in jail right now for the unaliving of her kids. His wife, who he was married to for like 20 years, she died due to health complications. So that's the wife, that's the husband, that's the 2 kids, and her brother's 5 people. And now they're saying that Lori Vallow's previous husband, it's her 3rd or her 4th marriage. They're even saying she has an older son named Colby Ryan. Go check out his YouTube channel. He hates Lori. He doesn't call her mom. He's been doing his own commentary on this trial, and I love his perspective. I mean, he's completely traumatized by this entire incident, but he's just handling it with so much grace. And so he does commentary on his own. I would definitely go check out his channel, Colby J. Ryan. And he's so well spoken, and it's just crazy how he's doesn't agree with his mother at all. I mean, his mother obviously is a psychopath. But he seems like a very normal person who has gone through some very traumatic things. His little brother and his little sister were murdered. And at the hands of his own mother. And she's smiling, and they've played phone calls, like they've had jail call phone calls, and she literally is just telling him you're just gaslighting the crap out of him. One day you're gonna understand, like, not holding herself accountable in any way or fashion. And the way he talks to her is like, I commend him. He really, like, just tells her like she's out of her mind. And you know he was very mad because in the beginning of Lori Vallow's opening statements for this trial, she says she's not guilty because this is a family tragedy. Nothing else. It's not something that was planned or intentional. It's a tragedy, which is obviously just, there's too many coincidences for her to not have planned this. It's like a domino effect, that she was totally a puppet master. Even Alex Cox, her brother, who has since passed away as well, who was the one that fired the shot, his ex-wife even said that he feels her ex-husband, Alex Cox, um, who was never convicted, she said that him and Lori, his own sister, had a weird relationship. Like, they overstepped a lot of boundaries, like flirtatious. And there's a recorded phone call where she was telling someone that, and they were asking her why. And she said that there was an incident where, like, Lori, like, jumped in his arms and, like, straddled him and was jumping up and down on him, like simulating sex. That's totally gross. I can't believe I just said that. But yeah, so her Alex Cox, her brother, who actually fired the shots, their whole story was this was self-defense, which that goes out the window, because self-defense is you are diminishing the threat. Charles was shot twice. He was shot once in the heart, which is terrible. They left him there to bleed out. They didn't call the cops for 45 minutes, a 911. So by the time the EMTs came, they couldn't even do CPR on him. He had no pulse. And then the medical examiner says that they could tell that he was on the ground, lying on the ground. And when you get shot in the heart, it only takes about 2 minutes to die without care. Even if you get care, that maybe you could prolong that, but not by much, unless there's some miracle. But so he was lying on the ground bleeding out, and he shot him again in the stomach. And so the medical examiner could tell, like, the second bullet was after he was already, the threat has already, so-called threat was already diminished. So self-defense theory is complete BS. We're going to see what the jurors think. It's amazing that they could find 13 people that hadn't heard about this case, but I guess it's not that shocking. As I'm doing my channel, I've been asking people if they've heard about some of these cases, and a lot of them, they haven't. So I guess unless you're really into things like this, I guess it definitely is possible. They did find 13 people here on her jury that do not know about the children being unalived. They do know Alex has passed away, but Alex passed away from supposedly natural causes. So that's all the juror knows, that all the jury knows. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see. There's people that are saying there could be a verdict today. So, I mean, not today, this week. There's going to be a verdict this week, which is a speedy trial. That's super speedy. I mean, but the verdict, I guess there's no real timetable on that. It's basically just depends on when all the jurors come to the same conclusion, or when they decide on a collective answer. That's when the verdict is actually turned in. But after the closing statements, the jurors will get to collaborate and decide on what they think. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that she's going to be found guilty? I think she will be found guilty. And it's just such a pointless court process. In my opinion, she's already doing life for the unaliving of her 2 children. So what more can they do to her at this point? You know, what more can they do? You know, she's never going to get out of jail. And if she is found innocent, does that give her credit for time served? You know, like instead of 100 years, she does
All right,
90.
we'll go on the record. State of Arizona versus Lori Vallow, CR 2021-001704. Before our break this morning, the defendant moved to have an exhibit admitted for appeal purposes only. That exhibit number, the correct number, I believe, is 269.
That's what I understand, Your Honor.
All right, so it's ordered that 269 would be admitted for appeal purposes. It won't go back to the jury during their deliberations.
Oh, she's already planning her appeal, so she knows she's going to get be charged guilty.
Go ahead and get the jury lined up, I guess.
Oh, look, I can put your quote up. Look at that. Look at me being a streamer. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Somebody else comment again so I can do a new comment. So we are in 720p. And hopefully that's good enough resolution. I don't know why Restream put it in 720p. I wanted it in 1080p, but if you guys know what I'm talking about. So this morning I thought they were going to do the closing statements. The defense rested their case. Lori Vallow's side, meaning she didn't have any witnesses to bring up on the stand. She basically grilled all of the state's witnesses last week in cross-examination, and the jury, they have been late consistently. Like the jurors have been consistently late, which I don't know you could do that or get away with that, but the judge has been pretty nice, I guess, because they've been doing that a few times. Like, I'm surprised they weren't reprimanded, but I mean, what can you do? You know, they're doing it as a public service, so it is what it is.
Right.
I couldn't imagine being on jury duty in LA, Los Angeles. Oh my
Time set for closing arguments. The state can proceed with.
They're in Phoenix. Because parking is a BITCH. So that would be understandable that you're late.
July 18th of 2019, just 7 days after this defendant and her co-conspirator Alex Cox shot and killed Charles. This defendant texted her soon-to-be next husband, Chad Daybell, about Charles's life insurance policy. Her words tell us that she was involved in this killing. Her actions and her words of texting Chad Daybell tell us the motives behind this murder.
With Galvani Ricotta, you got a breakfast.
Sorry. Trying to put the closed captions on.
Of July,
I guess.
Lori Vallow texted Chad and said, quote, "I just got the letter from the insurance company saying that I am not the beneficiary. It's a spear through my heart."
Yeah,
Who do you think he changed it to?
she texted her cult leader
Later
husband.
that day after she spoke,
They had already unalived him.
He sent Chad another text. Quote, "So I talked to the insurance company. He changed it in March. Probably it was Ned before we got rid
They
of
called
him."
Ned his evil spirit. They named his
Lori Vallow's words
supposed.
7 days after Charles was shot and killed tells us that we was her and Alex, killing Charles. Why? For that money. But Lori Vallow's plan to kill Charles wasn't just known by her lover, Chad Daybell, and her accomplice and co-conspirator, Alex Cox. It was also known by her brother, Adam.
Her other brother,
Adam told
Adam.
us that he knew about Lori's beliefs. He knew what she had been saying about Charles's concerns for himself.
This
And
is
he
the
told
state,
us
the
that
prosecution.
He knew about this plan for an intervention to talk to a stakeholder. That morning of July 11th, when Charles arrived at Lori's house, as she knew he would, he texted Adam and said, "Al is here." Adam texted back, "They are planning something."
Ooh, Adam testified against her other brother.
And 3 days later on Saturday,
He was
when
pissed.
Adam
Her whole
finally
family hates her.
learned, when his friend Googled Charles, that he had been shot and killed by Alex, Adam told us he went back and talked to his mother and he confronted her about this. And he told his mother, Lori and Alex conspired to kill Charles. He knew, and he was right.
Oh, he told his mom.
Lori's
Their mom.
ex-friend, Christina Atwood. She told you about that very uncomfortable dinner on June 9th, a month before the murder, where Alex Cox was talking about just wanting to kill Charles. He said this multiple times, and this defendant didn't care. In fact, she talked about how she had been drugging Charles. Christina told you she was so disturbed by this, she actually went and saw Lori the next day, June 10th, and told her, if something happens to Charles, I'm going to have to go to the police. Christina knew. She was right.
Christina wore a,
And
or
Nancy
she
Jo
recorded
Hancock,
their
she
call.
had just met Charles a few days before, and they had talked and texted and had been on the
After
phone
Lori
for
unalived her
hours.
husband and her children, her new husband, they ran off to
Charles
Hawaii
told
and
her
got
all
married.
about Lori, the things she was saying,
And her
the
friend
things she
called
was
her
doing.
and recorded the
She
call.
told you that she knew that Charles was concerned for his own safety. And
And
she understood the motive.
Lori just said,
She
one day
told
we're all
her
going to
the
answer
night
to God.
before,
It's like,
you probably should just
God
tell
is
Lori
not
that you've changed
dealing
the
with you at this
beneficiary,
point.
that she's no longer going to get that money. Nancy Jo knew, and she was right. Lori Vallow wanted the $1 million, and she wanted Chad Daybell. And she and Alex used that twisted religious beliefs they had so that they could kill the evil, possessed Charles and be like Nephi.
Nephi is in the
Evidence
their
that has been presented in this
Latter-day
trial
Saints followers,
will prove to you
and
beyond
there's
a
a
reasonable
story in the
doubt
Bible,
that this defendant
in their
is
Bible,
guilty of
of a
conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
person called Nephi that killed
So I wanna
someone
split
to
up my
enter
closing into
the gates
3
of heaven.
sections. First, I'm going to talk to you about the timeline.
So they keep Lori
and the
keeps
motives
calling
of the
herself
case
Nephi.
and the evidence that supports those. Second, I want to talk to you about the jury instructions and the evidence that's been presented to you in court. I'll remind you that anything the defendant said in her opening was not presented at trial through a witness or through an exhibit, and it is not evidence.
Yeah,
Using the evidence
her
that
opening
has
statement,
been
Lori, was
presented
like,
and
the evidence will
admitted
show,
at
the evidence will
trial
show she didn't call any of her
to
own
show you
witnesses.
how, again, the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of this crime. And finally, I'm going to talk to you about those justification defenses, the excuses and the reasons why the defendant would like you to believe that they had a valid basis for shooting and killing Charles on July 11th. And we'll talk about how, in fact, there is no justification for what they happened. What happened that morning was a first-degree
Agreed.
premeditated execution of Charles Vallow.
And what happened? It wasn't
So
even
let's go through the evidence.
let's go through the
timeline
evidence.
really starts, and we know it goes back much further than
But you can
this.
present evidence
But
again in the closing
a big
statements.
change occurs on June 29th or 30th, when you learned that Charles Vallow learned about these KK Walker emails. He learned about that affair with Chad. Now he knows Lori is cheating on him. We know that he contacted Chad Daybell about it. He contacted Chad's wife about this.
Who's
He
also
told Adam
now
about it,
unalived.
and he told the
We
defendant.
have 5 bodies
So everyone knew
to get
Charles now knew this.
collectively 5 bodies. He's a serial killer.
July 9th is now the first time that Charles is going to be coming back to Arizona. We know from the time he learned about that affair, he hadn't been back until this planned visit to see his son, JJ. We know at 1:13 p.m., Charles texts Adam and books him a flight for the next day.
They were going to
21,
schedule an intervention because they
Adam
thought
is contacting Alex.
Lori was
They talk for 20 minutes.
going off the deep end, and they
Alex
were
lets
right.
Adam, no, sure, you can stay with me. Of course, Alex doesn't know the plan yet, the mission. Lori then starts talking to Chad Daybell. We know that she knows about this intervention. She
This
knows
prosecutor
about
is
Adam
connecting
coming.
the
We know this
dots for the
because,
jury.
again, of her text messages.
Because although they presented all of
See
this
Lori then
evidence,
starting to round up the troops. Why does she do this? Because she wants to ensure
she's putting it in
that
sequence
on July
now.
11th, it is Charles and only Charles coming to the house and not the intervention of Adam or Brandon or Zach coming over to help him.
Brandon is her nephew, who
So
also,
she has
or
Melanie.
her niece's
Tells her
husband.
she can't go to this wedding. She has to stay here. It's coming to a head this week.
Who was
will change
also shot at.
everything.
Like,
Tommy.
this lady is a freaking on.
Then we have July 9th, the text messages.
Who just
with
she
Alex.
really does think that she's
She tells him, so the
freaking
plot thickens,
touchless.
call me when you can. He doesn't call her initially. So she sends him another message, this one really letting him know. She specifically tells him, I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple days. Mel too, she can't go to Utah. She's got a job.
so the entire
Flanking some kind of
trial,
intervention.
they didn't show that
Mel
screen.
out of the way,
They
so I'm
showed
gonna
autopsy photos that we didn't get to see,
talk
that I
to
wanted to
come
see.
Get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it.
That's the first time they've
Lots to do.
she
Thank
she's
you
a
for
she
standing
is
by
a
me.
serial
It's all
killer, and
coming
she
to a
doesn't
head.
feel bad about it. So she's a
I will
psychopath.
be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. And then what happens? This gets Alex
Oh,
to
let me
call,
add your
and they
new
talk
comment.
for almost an hour.
Oh my
An hour
gosh.
planning how they're going to stop the intervention, how they're going to be like Nephi. As we get to the 10th of July, and we continue through this timeline, we see Lori again talking religiously with Chad, 149 minutes that morning. She's also texting Lori, or texting Melanie Boudreau, Melanie B, telling her that it's important for the mission, for Melanie to help her by keeping Brandon distracted.
Yeah,
Those messages
I think
where
the
Melanie
jurors
said
are
she'll pretend to be
gonna,
sick.
they're gonna buy this.
We
I
know
mean,
that
this
on
sounds
the 10th,
plausible.
Adam arrives in Phoenix,
This sounds plausible, and
and now we have Summer
convictions are
helping the defendant,
beyond, you
letting
know,
her know what is going
beyond,
on
supposed
with
to
Adam
be
and
beyond
Zach.
a reasonable doubt.
Everyone is covered to ensure that Charles
This
will be
covers,
alone
checks
on the
those
11th.
check boxes.
We have the continuing talks with Chad, her soon-to-be husband.
If it's too much of a coincidence.
As we get into the
There's no
10th in the
coincidences
afternoon,
anymore.
We know that per their agreement, Adam calls his brother Alex. Hey, I'm here. Brother doesn't answer. Sends him a text. I'm here.
Yeah, her good brother, she
No
has a good brother
response.
who
Why?
testified against
Because
her.
the night before, his sister Lori told him, we have a mission. We must be like Nephi. Charles is coming into town. You must stay at my house the night of the 10th so you can be here the morning of the 11th.
I think the
We also know
prosecutor
that
is doing a good
Summer
job of
gave
painting the
Lori
picture.
an out. Hey, you can stay at my house. No one will know where you are. We're going to be out of town. You can hang out here. Lori doesn't take her up on that. She has a mission to do. As the night grows on the 10th, Adam continues to try to reach his brother Alex. Again, no response. And by 45 or so minutes after that last text by Adam, we know Alex is already at Lori's house. He's there with his gun and a garbage bag of some underwear. Why? That gun is important. A loaded weapon, 2 extra magazines of ammunition with him. He is ready for his mission.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Summer is updating her, telling
Yep.
Lori that
Lori,
Zach and Adam are still at her house. They're going to go stay at
see
Mimi's.
how you talk your way out of
She
this
even tells
one.
him that Adam is still waiting for Alex to get back to him. Still, he doesn't understand. Why isn't my brother responding to me? I was supposed to stay there. And again, what does Adam bring over? Gun and a garbage bag of clothes.
Oh, she called him Adam.
That's all he needs.
She
to be a
misspoke.
part of the mission.
Adam's the good one. Alex
When we get to July 11th,
Alex is the bad
we
one.
still
She
have
said
Lori
Adam.
talking with Chad.
Hopefully the jury
See
is.
those text messages
I'm sure
going back between them.
they know though, because
And then we start learning
good one,
that
Adam, is
GPS
alive,
Charles Vallow's phone
and he
as
testified
arrives.
against Lori.
7:35
And it was
a.m. He arrives.
it was kind of
at
funny to watch
5531 South 4 Peaks.
because she was like, "Why did we stop talking, Adam?" And he was like, you killed your
Adam texting
husband."
Charles. They are planning
Hello. I'm pissed at you.
something.
Like
There's
you're
no
a
reason why Alex should be there.
jerk. And
And
She
that
was like,
explains why.
when's the last time we
Alex
saw
wasn't
each other?
responding to me and didn't let me stay.
When
there.
I made my chicken
We see that
enchiladas.
last
And he was
outgoing
like,
text message by
the
Charles
hell?
Vallow at 7:37.
These were the kinds of questions she was asking him when he was on the stand. And he
And
was
in
like,
fact, what we see is at 7:37
I don't remember
and
what you
12
cooked.
seconds,
She was like,
Charles
my
sends out his
famous
last
enchiladas.
outgoing message.
He was like,
And at
what is wrong
7:37
with you?
29 seconds, there's
And he
a
said no. He
message
was like,
from Alex
you don't even cook.
or Adam.
Even her own son said that.
It's not read until 12.
Like random details that no one like. It just shows she's a sociopath.
What
She's
becomes
super
important
disconnected from
here
reality.
is in this
She's
timeline,
focused on, again, like the Chris Watts
Charles
interview.
Vallow, the resident.
You're not reading the room. You are
Here
on
in
trial for
her
murder.
interview, how
It's
she
not
says it
another
so
day in the
fast.
park where you're reminiscing
Charles comes
about
inside.
the last time you saw your
He's
brother.
angry. He's
Like,
jerky.
realize the gravity of the
She tells him,
situation
"Take
you're in,
JJ.
and the fact that you're so
Go get him Burger
disassociated
King." They get JJ out to the car.
speaks to you're a little bit
And then she
crazy.
holds onto the phone. And this argument erupts, and it's just so fast. But what we know is it's actually 12 minutes long. This is not a fast incident. In this 12 minutes, Lori Vallow and her brother Alex Cox are doing their mission, and they are being like Nephi.
Nephi.
7:49, it's over. Lori has left in Charles Vallow's car with his phone and JJ.
Oh, yeah.
and Kylie.
So they're saying the argument started because she grabbed his phone and she
We
wanted
know
to see
that
who
there
he had
are
been
2 phone
texting when
calls
she's already
between
having an affair on him.
Alex and this defendant,
So
after
she took
three.
his phone.
as Charles is laying, dying or dead on the floor.
Disrespect, man.
7:52,
You know people love their phones.
8:06, they talk.
You know you will freak
47
out if someone
minutes
took your phone,
passes
especially
before
someone you're cheating on.
Alex calls 911. 47 minutes to stage the scene.
Yep.
The police are advised when
They got
arrive
too
that
many
the
things
shooting just
against
occurred
them. Like Lori,
And that CPR was given. Why is that important? Because you heard even during the interviews, the police were trying to figure out this timeline. Didn't make sense. At 8:48, Almost an hour later, Lori Vallow returns. And then we see that around 9:40, she is being interviewed at the Family Advocacy Center.
So this is where
We know that Lori Vallow has Charles's phone that entire
they brought her into
afternoon.
the station and
We
they
saw the
treated her like a
PowerPoint from
victim.
Detective Werther,
They did not
showing
grill
that
her.
phone by about 12:36 is already her phone, Alex's phone.
And she thought she could
and
smile
Charles's
her
phone
way
all
out
in
of the
area
police
of
station. And she did.
Alex's house out in Sandham.
They gave her the benefit of the
We
doubt.
see
She
on
wasn't the
record
one that fired
she
the gun.
again
So
calls Chad Daybell. We see that Detective Enclin calls her and leaves her a message. They don't leave immediately because what do we know? We know at 2:13, Alex is taking photos of Adam's or flight reservations from Charles's phone. Not
Yeah.
screenshots, but photos of the
then
phone.
they're using the dead
At
man's
2:18,
phone.
Lori Vallow, who has not told Charles's kids, his family, about his murder, is calling the mortuary.
And when she did tell his kids he was passed away, she
A little bit
texted them.
after that, they still haven't left.
She's like, oh yeah, your dad's dead.
She's calling Chad again. And then by 3:11, we know that Charles's phone, through the GPS data, is back at 5531 South Four Peaks.
Oh, we get to see the
And when
evidence.
asked about it, the defendant entirely handed over and provide the PIN.
Afternoon watch.
They have no problem on how to get into it. They've already looked through it. They don't need it anymore. That evening, Lori and Chad are talking all night. You can look through the exhibits and see the multiple calls of them discussing. These aren't calls to Charles's family. They're not calls to his kids. They're talking with her lover, her soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell. So let's talk about the motives of this case.
It's so funny. Her son, Colby Ryan, he calls her new husband Peter Griffin.
Going to get it.
And he does look like Peter Griffin.
We didn't go through those text messages, but you can look at them. There is
Chad Daybell, go look him up. He looks like Peter Griffin. He's like not a cat. Like, he has, oh man. I don't want to talk about him. He's like,
what's going on because he's asking her about the car, about the
she was
insurance.
blinded. He's definitely
All of
a
those things Chad
cult
knows.
leader. That's what they do. Cult leaders
There's that religious
are
belief
able
system,
to persuade, and
the zombies, the
he
disease, the possessed
persuaded the heck
evil
out of her.
spirits.
Okay.
And her being
Motives,
occupied.
money,
All
Chad,
reason in a way to kill someone,
crazy religious
just
beliefs.
like Nephi, a justified
She's
killing.
spelling it out. The prosecution is spelling it out for the jury.
There's that first call when we talk about money motive. To Banner Life Insurance.
And what was the cause of his passing?
She's calling the life insurance to find out how much money she's going to get, and she finds out she's not
He was shot.
she doesn't
Okay. So
get
I
any.
don't know how I want to put that.
Imagine killing someone for nothing.
And I hate to ask, but is it?
Yeah,
you can just say yes or
And that's
no.
how it goes. That's how karma works. So
Was it a
Never-
homicide?
never worth it. Like,
No, it was an accident.
An accident.
she could have easily just divorced him and moved on with her life. And he was in love with her. He would have not abandoned her. He would have still gave her spousal
Banner Life
support.
Insurance. We'll talk about credibility later, but it becomes very relevant that even in the small.
He even befriended
This
Chad
defendant
Daybell, the guy that she
exaggerates, minimizes, and
let
is completely
lead her
untruthful
down this
to various people.
very bad path.
We all know
Her
that
ex-husband who
she's
passed
not
away,
the
who was
beneficiary.
murdered,
She didn't.
was going to hire
Also
her new
know
husband
Charles Vallow was not
to be a
accidentally shot.
ghostwriter for his
She told the
book.
police she was there. She's
So there's so
knows
many
that her
like
brother intentionally shot her.
overlapping
Of course,
connections.
they want to claim it's self-defense.
Lori
There's no
is just-
accident about that when you shoot someone twice.
You have a man who's like willing to take care of you, and you just treat him like he's
Motives.
nothing. It's so sad, man. Justice for Charles.
What we see again here is Lori Vallow talking
He's about to get his justice right now.
to Chad about the motive. Telling Chad about the fact that it was changed. I just got the letter from that insurance company saying I am not the beneficiary. It is a spear through my heart.
Okay, so these are the texts.
Brandon, or probably Kay. You left nothing
When
to
she's
say.
texting Chad that she found out that she's not the beneficiary to the $1 million policy, the $1 million life insurance policy. I mean, what more obvious reason is there for MURDER? It always comes down to some life insurance policy that Charles had really good intuition about his wifey and
Again,
changed the
talk about the murder
beneficiary
later in that day.
out of her
Message that I
name
talked to
2
you
months
about.
before
It
he was
probably
gunned
then
down.
Before we got rid of him.
It's just so crazy how people's intuition,
Not I,
he didn't
not
know,
my brother Alex, but we did.
but something in his gut told him to do that.
And then the other thing in this text message that is of importance is the fact that Lori Vallow knew a month before she went to Social Security how much money she was already going to get for the death of Charles. Here she says, I will still get the $4,000 a month from Social Security.
Even the Social Security rep testified.
When we talk about that motive and the
Like,
anger.
Every
that the
single
defendant
person
for
that,
not
even
being the
the life insurance
beneficiary,
lady that took the
you know, that
call,
even on
testified
July
against Lori.
28th,
Like every single
10
person,
days
it's like
later,
clear as
she
day
goes into Charles's
what she was
computer to
doing.
find
So
the
it's
change of
just up to the
beneficiary
jury
form.
to like,
She
to like,
texts that
okay,
to Chad to show him,
yeah.
and she sends it
When
to
there's
Kay and
too many
confronts
people
her about
saying
it.
one thing, this is an obvious answer, right?
That's what she wanted.
Not everyone is
from
wrong.
Chad.
And what is the most
So let's talk
likely
about Chad.
scenario?
The
This is,
affair with Chad
that's
Daly.
also
We
always
know that
true.
she knew him as far back as
What is the most likely
November of
answer?
2018.
What is the
When
easiest
she came here,
conclusion?
when he came
It's
to
never
Arizona
complicated. When
and
someone wants
stayed
to
at
like do
Lori's
a bunch
house.
of like, you know,
You were told by Detective
back and forth
Duncan that there were
answers,
recordings on
and
her
it's like
Lori
complicated to
Versailles
come
iPod
to that
of Chad
conclusion,
Daybell here
it's
in Arizona
unlikely.
for that preparing the people
Unlikely that that
conference.
is plausible. So that's why
We
this
also heard that in the lolly time,
this
the
is
later
as
account
close
that
to
was
beyond a
created
reasonable
later,
doubt that you're gonna
that
get.
in March of 2019, there were screenshots of flights to Idaho and back to Arizona. With
I
both
don't
Lori
think they
Vallow
should
and
keep
Chad
it on the
Daybell.
screen. I don't know why they just show
This
it
is
for a
during that
second. You
time
can't even
when
read
she
it.
disappeared and Charles was taking care of JJ, and she's off flying to Hawaii and Idaho,
Her kids were
living the good life.
murdered,
with her
and she
soon-to-be husband.
takes off with her new husband to go get
Of
married.
course, we know that come November 5th, she actually marries Chad Daybell. That KK Walker.
How can you even be
email
okay
address,
with yourself? Like
this was that June 29th.
you're
Big
just
change.
living in an alternate
What do
reality.
we know?
She's an
That
alien.
April 21st, she created that account. She used her own phone number in creating it. And then she sent messages to Chad Daybell, brother Daybell. You have that exhibit. She pretends to be Karen Walker and invites him to Houston, because that's where she is at that time. She offers to use Charles's money to fly him out there, and that he can stay at the house with her and her husband. In June of 2019, we see that Lori again uses that same account, but this time she pretends to be Charles and invites Chad out to Arizona to help him with a book. And again,
Oh, I didn't know that she wrote that email on behalf of Charles. I thought Charles.
finds those.
Oh, I
He
didn't know
lets
that.
everyone know
So she
he did.
pretended to be Charles.
And he confronts Tammy, lets her know. Confronts Chad, lets him know. And he certainly lets the defendant know that he knows. And now the jig is up.
Yeah, the cat's out of the bag. And he even contacted Chad Daybell's first wife before she mysteriously passed away.
In these text messages that
So
were
Charles
recovered
wasn't
from the
dumb.
iCloud accounts, whether they're under the Bubby contacts or under the Melanie.
He got
King
set up.
contact, this relationship between Lori and Chad. If you want to read the story, It kind of mimics them meeting in November, hooking up in hotels, and discussing their love for each other.
Chad Daybell looks like
When
Peter
we're
Griffin.
talking about a motive and a person who wants money and who has not worked for 13 years, who has had her husband pay for her homes, her phones, her cars, allowing her to go to the temple, and work out and go to lunch in restaurants. This is a big change in life if she loses all of this. But if she gets $1 million, it's not so big of a difference, along with that Social Security.
She was already being taken care of, and
And then obviously,
it wasn't
we know
enough.
that once Charles was out of the way, Lori and Chad were able to get married. So what about those religious beliefs? Everyone that Lori knew, who she expressed them to, told you that they were not in line with the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Twisted religious beliefs.
Everyone told you that she said things like she didn't need to repent, she didn't need forgiveness, she could do whatever she wanted now, that she was in a celestial state, translated, that she is spiritually and physically changing, that she's above the priesthood, that she knew who was dark and evil. You saw those text messages both about Charles and heard from people, as well as about Brandon and Zach and Adam. People who were helping Charles were also dark or Z's. And ultimately, what did we learn? That she associated herself with Nephi, a prophet, a holy man, who was justified and asked by God to kill Laban because he was an evil, wicked king who had the tablets that God wanted him to go get. Lori was just like that. She was justified in her killing. We heard from her brother, Adam, that their relationship had ended when she told him some things about her beliefs that he disagreed with. That she was turning into that celestial state, that she didn't need to eat, that she had more authority than the priesthood.
I guess the prosecutor put
Yes.
these slides together.
You yourself personally, were you aware of Lori having outside?
This is like the closing statements are like the trial all over again, and a condensed version, like a super sped up highlight moments. It's like a
Lori
mini
having any beliefs
recap.
that were
This is the recap.
outside of what is accepted by the LDS religion?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you were aware of that you knew to be outside the LDS religion?
Lori told me that she was in the process of translating from a mortal human being to an immortal human being, a celestial state.
This lady is
That's
off
something
her
that
rocker.
the LDS religion supports?
I haven't heard of it in that it's happened here on Earth yet.
Serena Sharp told us about, again, the not repenting and Lori changing physically and spiritually.
Members of the LDS Church.
Yes.
During this time, did Lori ever tell you things about her beliefs that seemed to go against what you understood or what you were taught through the LDS Church?
We know that finding high-quality foods you can trust can be
She only met that
challenging.
lady.
That's why Go Macro
She only met this lady on the stand 2 times. She spent 1 weekend with her during a girls' weekend.
During this weekend, did Lori talk to you about her
But
husband, Charles
Lori
Vallow, being
confided in
possessed?
her
Yes, she did.
these weird ass beliefs.
What do you recall about her talking about her husband being possessed?
I recall that she spoke about her husband being possessed by an evil spirit, and she named the evil spirit.
Do you recall what the name was?
Yes.
What was it?
It was Ned.
N-E-D? Ned?
N-E-D.
Now, Serena Sharp was someone who met Lori in November, texted her,
Guilty.
talked with her for a while.
Guilty as
And
charged.
was invited to that girls' weekend. One of the jury instructions you're looking at, and we'll talk about more though, is the credibility of a witness. Serena Sharp has no dog in this fight. She knew Lori for a little while. She was invited to, I'll call it the inner circle. The defendant told her some things that went against her religious beliefs, and she said pretty much after that the defendant stopped talking to her. Now, how do we know she's being truthful? Well, we see Ned in lots of text messages. This just helps tell us that this is something Lori was telling lots of people, that her husband is possessed by this evil spirit, Ned. And we learn later that, like Nephi, she can get rid of him.
Do you recall Lori Vallow telling you that her husband Charles was no longer Charles, that he was now this possessed person?
Yes.
When Lori was talking to you about Ned,
Yeah, she called people Z's, which
was she
stands for
explaining that
zombies.
this evil spirit was now in the body of her husband?
I don't know if she used those exact terms, but that was the impression I got, yes.
So the word she used expressed to you that idea that this evil spirit Ned was now in her husband's body.
Yes.
The other thing that Serena Sharp told us was Lori using that term zombie. You remember how upset the defendant got by her saying that. But again, why would Serena make up any of this? She has no reason to. What she recalls is that that is a term that this defendant used when speaking of people like her husband who were possessed by these evil spirits. We heard from Christina Atwood as well, the same concept that Lori Vallow repeatedly would say.
Did she tell you, as well as the other women who were at this meeting in February, that her husband was possessed?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't just you in a private conversation?
Correct.
She was open about it?
Yes.
So again, we see this ongoing timing of Lori
So
Vallow
they
talking
were
to her
objecting a lot in court,
husband,
calling some of the things hearsay.
authorized
They said,
under
they
her
use that
religion to
term
get rid of.
a lot. Like,
We know as well. from
so if you ever go to
Lori Vallow
trial
that there
and you
is
want to
a
get things thrown out, just keep saying
progression
hearsay, hearsay, because they will throw it out.
becoming more deviated
And that's what
from the
Lori
LDS
tried to
religion
use in
as
defense,
she
but
is meeting with her between February
it's not
and
hearsay
June.
anymore when they
when she
actually
finally
get the
hears
person
those
that
words.
said it to say it in person. It's not hearsay.
From the time you started meeting with these gatherings in February through to June,
That's why she's playing.
did you start to see sort of a progression
The direct
of things that Lori was telling you that seemed outside of your faith?
Yes.
Did she make statements to you that you believed went against your religion?
Yes.
Did she at any point tell you that she did not need to repent anymore?
Yes.
What is that meaningful to you in your religion?
We believe that every single person outside of Jesus Christ has reason to repent.
Other than Lori Vallow, according to her words to multiple people. So let's take all of this, the motives and this timeline now, and talk about some of the jury instructions and all the evidence that supports proof beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, she's going to be convicted because
I want to start with talking to you about direct and circumstantial
Too
evidence.
many people that are coming
You
to
have a
the
jury
same
instruction that tells you
conclusion.
that evidence may be direct or circumstantial, that direct evidence is the testimony of what a witness saw, heard, or otherwise
Yeah,
sensed.
direct testimony, it's
And
not
circumstantial
hearsay.
evidence is proof of a fact or facts from which you may find another fact. You're told the law makes no distinction between direct and circumstantial evidence. And this is relevant. The witnesses have often been questioned. Did you see, hear, or do that? What you are told is you can actually use circumstantial evidence to convict anyone. But let me give you an example of this. Imagine you are sitting on a beach. Just you, it's quiet. Off to your right, there's some rocks and you can't see around that. While you're sitting there, a person walks by, you watch them walk by and they go around the rocks and you can't see them anymore. And then someone runs up 5 minutes later and they say, hey, did you see someone come by here? You say, well, yeah, I saw them walk that way. That is direct evidence. You saw it. Now imagine you're on that same beach and it's completely empty. You close your eyes for 5 minutes. Just relax. Before you closed your eyes, the beach was completely pristine. And when you open them up, now you see footprints. You can see the toes facing off to your right, the heels, and you see them go all the way around the rocks there. Somebody again runs up 5 minutes later and they say, hey, did someone come by here? And you go, well, I mean, I didn't see them, but they must have gone by in the last 5 minutes because you can see their footprints. They went that way. That is circumstantial evidence. You can infer from that that someone went by and where they went. The burden of proof.
Burden of proof's on the
The state
prosecution.
has the burden of proof, as we absolutely should. So let's
I
talk a
said
little
that
bit about what it
earlier.
is and what it is not. You're told that the burden of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And the instruction tells you that that leaves you firmly convinced in the defendant's guilt. You're told there are very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. And in criminal cases, the law does not require proof that overcomes every doubt. If, based on your consideration of the evidence, you are firmly convinced that the defendant is guilty of the crime
I
charged.
think she's going to wrap
you must
up right now
find him
because she's going
or her.
to the technical part now.
So I want to start by saying what proof beyond a reasonable doubt is not. It is not proof beyond all doubt.
And
Proof beyond all
during the
reasonable doubt.
opening
It's not
statements,
proof beyond
she
all
went first and then
possible
Lori
doubt.
Vallow went
No.
second.
You're told that there are very few
And
things in life we know with absolute
the
certainty.
state objected
So
during
just
her
because
opening
someone
statement.
says
So some of
why,
these things, Lori Vallow could be
that
like,
is not
objection,
reasonable doubt.
and she could interject, but
What you're
she's
told
not,
is it's proof beyond
because she doesn't
a
have,
reasonable doubt.
she doesn't know what she's talking about anyways, because she's not a trained lawyer.
As we go through the evidence.
But when Lori did her opening statement, the
crime,
prosecutor said, objection,
I'll show
objection.
you
She kept
that
like
there is
putting
no
holes in
reasonable doubt as to
the
what is
opening
defendant's
statement by
guilt.
Lori. So Lori didn't have a great start.
So let's start with the crime itself. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. There are 3 stages in this, or 3 things the state must prove. 1, that the defendant or her co-conspirator caused the death of another person. Well, we know that Alex Cox shot and killed Charles on July 11th of 2019. Alex called 911. Alex indicated he was the shooter. He was the only one home. It was his gun. His credit card or debit card was in there with the gun. And we know that Lori told the police that her brother killed Charles. So we know that he caused the death of, so that. 2, that they intended or knew that she or a co-conspirator would cause the death of another person. When we are looking at this case, we are looking at the defendant's words, actions, and motive. The words and actions of having her brother Alex come over on the 10th with a gun so that he would be there when Charles came over to pick up JJ.
Yeah.
The actions that day of taking
It wasn't
Charles's
self-defense because
phone, ensuring that he could not leave, that he could not take his
he
son
showed up with a
to
gun.
school. The defendant
told the detectives how angry and screaming Charles was about the phone. But she didn't just give it to him, throw it at him, tell him to get out, whatever you might do. She held onto it and told the police that she walked away with it as he's trying to grab it. The defendant's actions and words show us that she is the only reason why Charles stayed in there and the only reason why Charles was shot. Then there's those 12 minutes. Defendant tried to pretend that this was a quick, angry scuffle. But Charles is there for 12 minutes. The defendant is there for 12 minutes. Alex is there for 12 minutes before she leaves. We look at her actions when she came back. She told the police her brother was hit in the head with a bat. She never asks how he is. She's not concerned about his injury.
Yeah.
She's not concerned about her husband being dead.
Really
That's what gave her away.
Universal Fan Fest nights like Star
That's
Trek,
when
Back to
people
the
think
Future,
that they have
Dungeons
the
and
perfect
Dragons, One
crime,
Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen,
and
more,
then they
all in one
act
place every event
out of
night
place.
at Universal Fan Fest nights. Select nights.
They act not in with the typical circumstances how you would act. So that will be used against you.
Chad, that Charles changed his life insurance policy before we got rid of him. They show her intent to kill Charles. And again, we look at the motive, money and Chad. When did this happen? The first time Charles came back into town after he found out about the affair. Finally, the state has to prove that the defendant or the co-conspirator acted with premeditation. So I'm going to talk
This
to you
case
about
is a slam dunk.
You have a jury
Prosecution's
instruction
getting a win, a W
that tells you that
on the
the
resume,
co-conspirator
and Lori got some
intended to kill
court
another
practice.
human being or knew
She got
that
to
you were the
practice being a
co-conspirator
lawyer.
to kill another human being, and that after forming that intent or knowledge reflected on the decision before killing. It is this
And then Lori's
reflection,
going to give a
regardless of the length of time in which
post-trial, no
the
matter what the
distinguishes
conviction is,
first-degree murder from
post-trial
second-degree murder.
interview like
We're
psychopaths
also
do,
told an act is not done with premeditation.
i.e.
It is
comparable to
instant
Jodi
effect of
Arias.
oral
If you're
and
familiar with
passion.
that case, actually also
Around
happened in the
12
same
minutes. And the
county,
calmness of
Maricopa
walking
County,
around with that
Phoenix,
phone And her demeanor.
maybe like 10 years
We're
ago.
told
I think
the
it was in
time needed for
2015.
reflection is not necessarily prolonged, and the
She
space
killed her
between intent
boyfriend,
or knowledge
Travis
of guilt
Alexander.
and
Tried to
act
say it
of
was
may be very
self-defense.
short.
When she murdered him, they
So
say
I'm gonna
like
give you an
30
example.
times
A lot of
over. She
legalese.
shot him so many times. She
Talk
stabbed
about
him,
what we really
slit
have.
his throat. She
So imagine
overkilled him.
again,
So it was not
you are
self-defense.
grabbing
But
you do every
she
day.
did a post
You're coming up to
conviction
an intersection,
interview.
you see the
She was
light
doing
turn.
interviews in the media the entire
And in that
time,
second you think,
like an idiot.
do I want to run it?
And Lori's going to do the same thing. They may even serve in the same jail together. Well, actually, no, because Lori has to go back to Idaho.
You think about that, and then you decide, I'm going to slam on my brakes, and I'm going to stop. That is the time it takes to reflect. That is the time it takes for premeditation. But we have a lot more than this because we have planning, not just premeditation that morning. So when we talk about the premeditation that we see, it starts at least back.
I bet you
in
Lori tries to muster
when
up
we
tears.
have
That's
Christina
going to be the
telling us
last.
about Alex Cox saying
Her last
Charles.
hope is she's going to cry.
Lori
She's going to
had
cry.
no reaction to that.
She's going to do
and
some
instead
crocodile
talking
tears.
about drugging Charles.
Did you hear Alex making some comments?
Yes.
And you told us that they made you uncomfortable. What were these comments?
He stated he wished that he could just kill Charles.
Okay. Was Lori around when he was saying this?
Yes, one of the times.
Okay. So he said it more than once.
Yes.
Can you describe first sort of his demeanor when he's saying this about wanting to just kill Charles?
It was jocular, just as I recall, he was standing up and just talking about it pretty loudly.
And you said one of the times that he said this, it was around Lori.
Yes.
Did she react in any way to hearing her brother say that he wished he could just kill her husband?
Not that I recall.
They also say that Alex, the one that shot Charles, he was a stand-up comedian, and
Planning that we're talking about. We
you know,
that
Lori tried to
Lori
say that
Vallow
he
is
just joked about everything,
living
but like that's not
in a
stuff that
house
you joke
paid for
about.
by Charles Vallow.
So she's just grasping
We
at
know
straws.
From even her statements to Detective Enclan that she doesn't like Charles, is what she says, but Charles won't file for a divorce. We know from her words and text messages that she wants to be with Chad Daybell, but Charles is her cash cow. She hasn't worked. He pays rent, car, cell phones, her travel. And so, as far back as June 9th, we're already.
Is she facing life without parole? Yes.
Lori would like to not just get rid of Charles, but kill him.
Yes, she is. Let me actually look that up.
June 9th,
I don't know what they're going for, actually. I don't think,
that Lori and her brother have of getting
I
rid
don't
of
think it can
Charles,
be
this dark,
the death
possessed
penalty. I
person.
don't think it's a death penalty
That we
case.
know on the 9th that there is definitely a plan by this defendant.
Let's see, Lori
And we
Vallow
see that through
charges.
those text messages with Melanie, with Summer, with Alex, where she speaks of
Charles
the
Vallow.
mission, where she talks about
Um,
telling Melanie, you can't leave. You got to pretend to be sick and stay
What-
here
what
and
is
keep
the
track
word
of
for
Brandon
that?
so he doesn't come help Charles. He can't be in
punishment?
the picture. We need to stay here to defend ourselves from an intervention.
So
This is the
Let's see
story
what
of
the
the
actual
one who
punishment
knows
will
that
be.
with a teammate like Granger, she will always win the day.
I need to get YouTube Premium.
Is talking to her and saying, or this, that she wants to just go to this wedding.
She's already
What does Lori tell her? No,
she's already doing life in
you have
prison
to stay here for
in Idaho.
the mission.
And
The mission of stopping an intervention? No. As we continue through the 9th, we see Lori getting everyone lined up. to
oh,
help
so her
Alex.
current husband, Chad Daybell, has been sentenced to death. So Chad Daybell, when they got convicted for the unaliving of their children,
Now, Lori
Chad is on death
It's an
row.
intervention. Everyone knows. Adam told you. what's
Lori
intervention.
got off from the death penalty in that
Common
case
language.
due to a technicality.
But that's not what
The
defendant
prosecution
wants.
filed their
She
paperwork
doesn't
late
want
and she got
Charles to
lucky.
divorce her and lose his money.
And so now
Doesn't
she's
want this
serving
intervention
time
where she
without
loses her
parole.
temple
But for
recommend.
this case,
What she wants is to be like Nephi and get rid of her husband.
Well, Nephi was a prophet in the Book of Mormon. It's the first chapter. He is a prophet, very humble and
So,
faithful
okay.
servant of the Lord. Ironically enough,
yeah.
his brothers tried to kill him at one point. But he actually ended up going to
That's her good brother,
Jerusalem to
Adam.
get these plates back, and
When
he
Lori
was run
told
off,
him about
came
her,
back,
he just really blew him off.
and then
Blew them off and was like, whatever.
went back again because the Lord asked him
Can't
to.
really take her seriously.
And when he did, the King Laban, who was actually a wicked king, was laying on the ground drunk in front of him. And Nephi was told to kill Laban.
Who was he told by?
The spirit, or
So this is in their the Latter-day Saints
God.
Bible.
So God was using a Holy Spirit to tell him to kill Laban, and
Yes.
did he?
Yes, he did.
Was that something he anguished over?
Yes.
But ultimately, it was a justified killing.
Yes.
You heard from Detective Duncan that everyone he spoke with gave this same story.
Okay,
And
so
again,
it says, if found guilty, Vallow faces life in prison without the with the possibility of parole after 25 years. But she's already serving multiple life sentences with no possibility of parole after the convictions in Idaho. Oh shit. And it says that this trial is not even the last. This is not even her last trial. She is facing a charge of conspiracy to commit murder for the attempted shooting of her niece's ex-husband, Brandon. Brandon was shot at in 2019 while driving near his home, but was unhurt. Prosecutors say Cox, her brother Alex, who's also deceased already, carried out the shooting and missed his target. Vallow Daybell. So Lori has pleaded not guilty. So she faces life on this one again. No death penalty. Oh shit. Let me turn the audio back on.
and then he waited there for his sister's husband to come into the
So,
house and would kill him.
life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years.
What we see is a very
She's already-
planned out,
she's already,
premeditated murder.
Serving 2 life sentences
But
with
let's
no
talk about some
possibility of
additional
parole in Idaho.
premeditation.
So,
Again, as we're looking
this trial is just like
we see on the 10th
really
that Lori's
drawn
family
out,
system
and
updates
doesn't
her
really
on
matter
where
what the verdict is
Adam
going to
and Zach are
be.
staying,
Like,
so she knows they're not with Charles.
they're
not
wasting
coming
taxpayers' money, you
They're
know?
not gonna be interfering.
I don't know. I guess everybody is deserves due process, but honestly, this is just like,
And there's that 12.
I feel like they should really kind of structure the justice
defendant
system. I mean,
desperately wanted to rewrite.
if it's not going to
the timeline
matter,
as they
like
told the
if you
police
get
that
years
day.
added or
It's
taken
just-
off, like
It was very quick.
it's really crazy that they televise this too. This trial.
It was 12 minutes.
I mean,
Charles arrives.
don't think they televised the one against her children, the one that she was charged.
During this time is when
Or no, maybe they did.
that premeditated
I think
murder
they did
was
for her ex-husband. So there's so many trials. It's so
Let's
confusing.
talk about that as well. The evidence at the scene, the physical evidence, supports this premeditated murder. Alex fired 2 shots. One of them went through Charles' center mast, exited out his back, and went into the floorboard. The second one, Charles was on the floor,
Yeah.
on his back. Bleeding out. Still
She's
able
got
to move
another
and
trial
as he had blood on his left hand,
for getting her brother
and he was executed.
to shoot at her niece's husband, her married and nephew,
In that time when we talk
who
about premeditation and
miraculously
reflection,
was
as Adam had to move
not shot.
his hand down, reposition the gun, and discharge and pull the trigger one more
Yeah,
time.
this lady
That
is
is
so entitled.
First-degree murder, no matter what you believe
Like,
before that.
Serial killer vibes, straight up. And she's going to do a post-trial interview, guaranteed. And she's still going to say, oh, you know, when she was telling her son, it's so scary. Like, she was like, you are going to be judged by God. And it's like,
Charles's left shoulder.
dang, lady, like, you have
And
some
we heard
nerve
from
to be
Dr. Bumgarner.
telling that to other people. Like,
Dr. Bumgardner told you that this
you're
was a
out here
massive
living
wound.
freaking
No
lawless
matter how many
life.
questions could be asked about him of maybe a bamboo shirt
Yeah.
might stop a bullet in one location but not in another.
Thanks for the comments,
Matrix like
Goodwill.
hypotheticals where maybe Charles bounced
I gotta fix this chair
back
though.
up, and then on his way down, the bullet slowed
I'm
down
not sure how
for him
to.
and waited till he hit
I
the
have to
ground
adjust
again
it
before
somehow.
exited.
The color.
Dr. Gardner told you, no, those hypotheticals, those issues did not make
This
sense.
is
He's never
different
seen a
layout.
T-shirt stop a
Oh,
bullet
so
in one
tiny.
location or at all. And we know Charles didn't bounce because we know he had no injuries to the back of his head.
Like it like that better.
This also tells us a little bit about the shooting itself. When Charles was shot that first time through center mast, he did not fall straight back and land onto the ground, laying there on his back. If he had, he would have had bruising, abrasions on the back of his head when he hit the ground. He didn't have anything on the back of his head. Where did he have abrasions? On his knees. When he fell to the ground after being shot, do we know how long it took him to roll over, to fall onto his back, before he was then shot a second time because he's still alive? You heard it could take up to 2 minutes for Charles to have died, and then he could have spoke and moved during that time period. What we do know is that he eventually ended up on his back. And while he was on his back is when he was shot the second time by Alex. This defendant and her brother in that house waiting and making sure that Charles was dead, murdered, executed. Words, actions, motive, and physical evidence all tell you what happened that morning. So let's talk about conspiracy. And I know there are a lot of layers here, and I'm just building them up for you. You're told in your jury instructions that conspiracy requires proof. One, the defendant agreed with one or more persons that one of them or another would engage in certain conduct.
Closing
So again,
statements. Okay, so there was a poll earlier, like how long would the closing statements be for Lori?
About for months.
And I said an hour.
Being dark.
It's been an hour
Wanting to kill him.
for the prosecution.
The discussion on June 9th, poisoning him or drugging him previously. And then when we got to July 9th, it is all coming to a head. We will be like Nephi. Her actions, having Charles come to the house, instead of him staying there, she had him stay away. Why? Because if Charles stayed at the house, couldn't have Alex come over with a gun and be ready to shoot him, right? You got to have him come in. Her actions of inviting her brother over with a gun the night before so he would be there. She knew when he would show up. He texted her, "I'll be there at 7:30. Pick up JJ." But most importantly, why did Charles stay in the house? Lori told the detective that Charles initially was like, "Oh, I'll just stay here for 20 minutes and then I'll take JJ to school." Well, she wasn't going to kill him in front of JJ. No, take JJ to Burger King. Get him out of the house. Go put him in the car. And he does that. But then she takes his phone. And she won't give it back. What she told the detective was, before this alleged Tylee bat, whatever thing you want to talk about there, that she had Charles's phone and was asking him about texting Adam. Of course, that's interesting because how would she have known that?
At Buca di Beppo,
Yeah, that's
every
part
meal's
of
a
the
celebration.
conversation she
Come try our
had
family feast that feeds
with
4.
the chief, or I'm sorry, the police England, the lady that interviewed her. She was like mad that Charles was texting her good brother Adam.
She won't give it to him.
She's like, why are you texting my brother? But
Because she needs Alex to come out. He brought that gun over for a reason. So she agreed with one or more persons, her brother, Alex, that she intended to promote or assist the commission of such conduct. Well, of course, we know both the promote, she is the one who on the 9th said, we will be like Nephi. It's time to stop this whole thing. Charles trying to take my temple recommend, all this stuff that's going on. Time to kill him. And of course, she assists by ensuring that Charles stays in the house when she takes that phone. And of course, they knew that it would constitute first-degree murder. That's what Nephi did. Only unlike Nephi, where it was justified, here, ladies and gentlemen, this murder was not justified. Finally, think about the demeanor when you're thinking about, again, words, actions, motive, and demeanor. When Lori comes back to the house,
She said, finally, is she wrapping up? Is the prosecution wrapping up?
Nonchalant.
I think she did a good job, though, of
No questions about her
recapping.
brother, no questions about her husband, no questions
She's
about the house.
definitely connecting the dots
Just
for the
laughing
jury.
about her neighbors. She is in absolute agreement with what has happened.
She's
She knows what's
definitely
happened.
painting the
She's
picture.
calm and good with it because she doesn't need to repent. She is able to determine who should live and die, and she has done that. So when we talk of the scope of conspiracy, you're told that to prove a conspiracy, it is not necessary to show a formal meeting or express agreement. But we see that from the 9th, in that conversation that she and Alex had, where she tells him, you are going to have to stay near me for the next couple days, and we will be like Nephi. You're also told that a conspiracy may be inferred from circumstances showing a common criminal objective.
They asked Lori in her pretrial interview that she did with Dateline. She did it with someone else from,
From the conduct. The conduct of what
I think it was Dateline too. She did 2 interviews with Dateline.
happened on the 10th and the conduct of what happened on the 11th. All infer to you a
What was I gonna say?
of Alex coming over.
Oh, they asked her
to shoot and kill Charles.
if she still considers herself still married to Chad Daybell. Chad is on death row now.
Again, look at this in this
And
conspiracy again.
Lori
Look
says
at
yes,
the same
but
words and actions.
she's just disassociated, in my
Charles
opinion.
is no
Like,
longer there.
she's not going to admit
There's just an evil spirit.
everything she's
inside.
done has been for nothing.
Charles is still possessed.
None of it.
And now
Everything has
Alex is saying he wants
been
to
for
kill him.
absolutely nothing.
Lori is fine with
She
this,
lost.
and she says she's drugging him.
This is only
or had been drugging him.
been a bunch of else.
And then 2 weeks before, all of a sudden Charles knows Lori's been having this affair. Lori's words, actions.
But she says, yes, I still consider myself married to Chad. And she was like, well, what is your future going to be? And I think she didn't want to voice what she literally probably wanted to say was, we're going to be together in the spiritual life.
Conspiracy again.
You know, she could have said that. I mean, because a lot of people do believe that. Like, yeah, when you pass away, you're going to be reunited. But
doesn't go to the door
after all of her other crazy beliefs, I don't think she wanted to actually say that out loud. But she was just like,
tell him what the
she didn't really answer the question, but she was just like, yes, we are. Unless she plans on breaking out of jail, because I think that's the other reason she didn't really elaborate. I think she's going to try and break out of jail.
You aren't going to shoot him outside. You want to make it look like self-defense inside. As you go through this, and we think about what's going on, the defendant doesn't even care. She wants her husband killed so bad that she's willing to let her brother bring over a loaded gun in an unlocked gun case in a house with a 7-year-old autistic child. That's fine. When the defendant was questioning Detective Enclan, she was talking about how hot it was outside. JJ's out in the car. But she has no problem with an unlocked gun in the house with the kid and she's worried about her child out in the car? She's not. We know that because she's the reason Charles doesn't go back out into the car and leave. She keeps him there in the house. She is why JJ's out in the car alone. She has to keep him there until Alex comes out and can shoot and kill him. When we talk about that premeditation, obviously we're talking about that message. We know from the 9th on, they are premeditated, they are conspiring, and it's all heading to July 11th. We look at the timing of this, and this is actions and non-actions. Charles is in the house for 12 minutes. After those 12 minutes, they wait 47 more minutes before they call 911. Why? To stage the scene. No CPR is performed. They wait for Charles to be dead, and then they talk during this time period. They talk. They could call 911, but nope, they're going to just talk. So again, you're looking at their actions, what happened and didn't happen, and the motives.
Yeah, and the EMTs couldn't perform CPR on him because he had a
There's the gun.
hole in his
The gun
heart.
was used to kill Charles.
And they said that the gun, when you do CPR, they said there's an audible crack if you're doing it correctly, or sometimes they put so much force it cracks your, I think it's your sternum.
He was just going to hang out at the house for
And
like 20 minutes.
they couldn't even do that because he had a hole, he had blood gushing out of his chest.
She has Charles's phone.
So they couldn't
She
even
won't give it back.
attempt
No matter
life-saving.
how much she says that
CPR.
Charles is screaming at her to give the phone back, she won't. And all of this conversation about Charles demanding the phone back is prior to her statement to Detective Enklin that Tylee comes out with this bat. This is all her doing. This is her as an accomplice assisting and promoting this murder. Lori is setting up Charles so Alex can shoot him.
So Lori's closing statement, I guarantee.
And with JJ?
So he put it in the car,
Okay.
in the driveway, and then he came back in, right? So I kissed JJ goodbye. He came back in, and his phone was on the counter, and I had his phone. And he was like, giving me my phone, and I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something against me. Like, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what did you come here for? You
This
know?
is immediately after the event, and she's acting like
At the same time.
she's chatting with her girlfriend.
And I haven't talked to my brother in a while, my other brother, and I was like, and so he was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house, and I'm
She's
like,
not
why are you
crying.
texting
She's
Adam?
not in
Like, you even
shock.
talk to him like my other brother.
So when you listen to these clips and the interview,
This is why people give themselves away. They don't read the room.
this is
They're trying too hard to act unbothered
interview is occurring.
and thinking
And
them
she's telling the detective that she confronts Charles
at the police
about
station
texting her brother Adam.
voluntarily is helping their case when
Had the 47 minutes she's
if you are really
and then that
guilty,
time at
you shouldn't, you could very much lawyer up and
house when she's waiting outside to
and then there would be
all of
no
those texts of
videotape
what's been
recording of
going
you.
on between her brother.
You know what I mean? Like that would look suspect. Like, okay, you're lured up already. But it would protect you in the long run. I'm not giving any legal advice.
So when you're listening to her interview, we know she's trying to work out.
But
this-
anytime you go and
what
talk to the
happened,
cops,
How did this go?
you know,
You can
you're
watch
on
her
camera
interview
and
as
your
well.
own words are going to be
And as you're
used
going through
against
this,
you.
you
Just
see how she's just
the way
telling
it
the
is.
story here, like what happened, almost chuckling about it.
Okay. So this morning he comes back in and.
He comes back in, I wouldn't give him his phone, he was screaming at me to give him his phone. He was very worried about whatever was on his text that he did not want me to see. And so I was just holding it there and he was screaming at me. And I was kind of walking towards around the house with it so he couldn't get it. He's like reaching for it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again,
But this
JJ's
was
in
like
the
a,
car.
it's almost like the real life is scarier than fiction, because if this were to happen in a movie,
Walking around
who would
the
believe
house,
that?
holding his phone, refusing it to give it
You
to
know,
him.
it will be a
Making sure
movie
her
now because
autistic
we'll know
child
what
is sitting up
happened
for
and
even
like, oh
longer
shit, like that's
so
the
that
zombie
she
mom,
can
that's the
ensure
doomsday mom. But
exactly what
if
they've
this
been
hadn't
telling
happened,
that Alex has
no one would
about the
believe
gun he
this
brought over
in a
to
movie.
shoot
Like,
and kill
ah, that
Charles.
wouldn't happen. Like the lady kills
This
the
defendant is
her
the only
husband's
reason why
ex-wife,
Charles
because
is
her new husband,
JJ.
his wife has
This
passed
defendant
away
is
as
the one who
well.
provoked Charles by
So,
taking
but
his
yeah,
phone
for
and
sure.
refusing
I
to
think
get
there
it
is going to
back.
be a movie. Yeah, good call,
This
good call,
defendant
good
is the
call.
one who ensured
I'm sure
that
Netflix.
Charles was inside
She's got one
without
more
JJ,
trial.
so Alex could shoot him. And
So
this defendant is the person who set up
I
Charles.
wonder when that trial is.
So that her brother.
Let's see when the next trial. Let's see.
Let's talk about staging the scene.
Let's see if it says.
We know obviously from the first responders that when they arrived,
She pleaded not guilty to the next.
That when he felt Charles's neck, he thought he was dead already, but they still let the first responders in because they've been told.
She is
CPR had been given.
crazy. She's crazy.
And what do we know? That they arrived within a few minutes.
Crazy
No one had
eyes.
ever tried to save Charles.
She's got crazy
Blood had been
eyes.
pushed out of him from CPR, whether strong
Oh my
or
god.
light. He had been dead for quite a while. His
Oh,
skin was
shit.
mottled when they started cutting open his shirt. and
Cheap
looking at his
viewers
back.
on Streamboat. Okay, we got our first
So they
spam.
kind of knew something
Remove
was
the
off with that
space.
timeline.
Cheap viewers
So
combined.
what about the scene itself? The bat.
You mean I can buy
To the right of Charles
viewers?
to look like he was
Can't do that.
got shot and it went flying behind him.
Okay, so let's see when her next trial is.
Well, obviously, we've heard from Kay, Charles's sister, that he was left-handed.
Or,
We know from the blood evidence on his hand, he was left-handed. There's no damage to that mirror. There's no damage to the drywall. There's no damage anywhere, like this bat is being swung around in this horrific fight that's going on of grappling. The injury to Alex Cox's head. You heard it was a small 1-inch cut that he was using a paper towel to pat and at times, as you watch that Exhibit 1, rubbing it, making sure it stays bleeding. There is no blood at the scene from this giant grappling thing going on that Lori Vallow wanted them to believe. His head is bleeding and they're grappling around.
they also fucked up because her husband, Charles, the one that got killed, he was a professional baseball player, and that's why they said that he was swinging a bat around.
Not one drop of blood on the gun.
And he was actually left-handed, and
And then the shoes.
they
Left by
said he was
the
swinging with his right hand. So it's like all these little details that she just,
after this.
you just can't get away with murder. There is no perfect crime, and this
But we know from
is
the
far from
Walgreens
perfect.
video is that she did enter the store with shoes.
Lori Vallow trial dates.
So we're going to go through. We know Charles again, left-handed.
She's like the Black Widow.
What position did you?
Oh, her next trial is May 30th.
He was very, very good. He was a left-handed pitcher, and they're very hard.
So in a month, she'll do her last trial.
Did he bat right or left-handed?
He was left-handed.
Did he do everything left-handed?
Yes.
Left-handed?
That's the only piece of evidence.
We know that Charles batted left-handed. not
Yeah.
right-handed.
So they fucked up there too.
And what we know is Lori Vallow had a story about how Charles was using that bat. And it becomes very important as well when we're talking about the staging of the scene. This is Exhibit 193.
Yeah, she was outside,
And what happened?
then they got up from that, and my brother had like stepped back, I guess, and then Charles was coming with me at the bat and yelling at me to give him his phone still, because I had it in my hand. It was all really quickly, and then when I went around kind of in the circle, then my brother was there.
When you said when you were going around and he was coming at you with the bat, how was he holding the bat?
Just like that, like backwards, almost in one arm.
Like he was swinging, but like swinging it backwards? He would have done like
Like he would have swung it backwards at me, not frontward.
okay.
So Lori Vallow, detective, and planned that Charles is swinging the bat backwards. Now, if the bat was like this when he was shot, the arm would have been shot. Covers his center mass. So we know he wasn't here. So if he's out here, where would the bat go? Down, out, somewhere that way to his left. It would not end up thrown up above him.
Yeah, who
And if it
does
wasn't
that?
there again, Charles would have been shot through the arm. Obviously, Alex forgot that Charles was left-handed. So when he placed that, like he was coming at him with a bat, their stories didn't quite match
Yeah.
the evidence.
Oh my God.
So, if we rely on Lori's story of how
Well,
Charles was holding
yeah,
the
her
bat,
next
there's
trial's in a
zero
month.
way that that bat would end up where it ended up.
Let me see. I'm sure that's in Arizona as well.
And again, we know he's left-handed from not only Kay, but his own admissions of that blood on his hand. So we see the scene is staged, this bat.
Yeah, I think
that
that's in Arizona too.
is so necessary to try to ensure this justified killing is legally justified and not just spiritually justified. When we talk about the scene as well, and you're looking at where Charles was, at least when that second shot went through him, you can see in the photograph to the right, the shot to Charles's chest, right between his nipples, and the shot to Charles's abdomen, down lower. We know
Ask
that the
questions.
first shot through his chest, that Charles would have been facing a little more towards
What the hell?
the open area there where we see the hallway and the kitchen. We know that because there was the bullet trajectory Detective Coons told you about that entered that far east wall. We know there was stippling, and so the defendant would have been, well, her brother would have been within 2 to 4 feet of the muzzle of that gun within Charles, 2 to 4 feet. We know from the lack of that injury to the back of his head that he didn't fall straight back. We know from the blood on his hand that he was still alive after he was shot. And we know the lack of stippling for that shot to his abdomen and that trajectory, and even the defendant's own statements that she saw her brother at Charles's feet, that he would have stood there at Charles's feet when he fired that second shot as he was laying on the floor. You have the bat, Exhibit 249.
Okay, guys.
At the edge of it, you see the photo.
Man, this lady is like,
There is no blood and no damage to this bat.
I don't know, guys. What do you guys
Regardless
think?
of how many times the defendant was hoping that blood was invisible.
I lost my chat. Where's my chat at?
Seen that blood is red.
Oh my God. Okay, here it is.
And
Serious
there was
stuff
no
of it.
blood on this bat. There is no blood on this bat. There is no damage to this bat. So you have a semi-professional baseball player who has a bat in his hand, and he sees someone with a gun and doesn't beat him with it, take his head off with it, knock him unconscious with it. Instead,
Yeah,
all we
you
see
can't
on
get
this
hit
bat
in the
is
back of the
zero
head
damage and 2 partial
with the
prints.
bat and
No prints of a body or smushed skin on it. Someone that's sweating from a fight that's left a large arm print on it or anything else. Nope, just 2 partial little prints on it. When you think about what is there and what isn't there, does the evidence of this bat fit in at all? It doesn't. We look at Charles's watch. No damage to it. No scratches to it. No dings to it as he's grappling on the floor. Lori wants you to believe. We know that at some point,
Charles is standing and shot, and we know that final shot, he's on the ground.
I think this
We
lady
know
has
he
been
fell to his
talking
knees
for
at some
like,
point.
okay,
And when you look
almost
at
2
the
hours.
physical evidence and the lack of damage,
I had no idea the closing statements were this long.
again, what makes sense is that Charles.
I
fell to
watched
his
the
knees
entire
after
trial,
that
and so
shot.
did these jurors.
We know that there is 12 minutes where the defendant and her brother.
I think she's going to wrap up because she's saying her final
Alex
points.
can get this 1-inch cut to the back of his head that's barely bleeding, that he uses a paper towel to dab at and rub.
Yeah, and that's a weird injury to get,
The shoes
a
that the
little
defendant
cut
ran out
from a
of
baseball
underway.
bat to your head. I don't
You
know.
have the exhibit. You can see black straps across her toes as she enters and exits the Walgreens. And then you see that she's wearing the flip-flops when she comes back to the scene. What do we know? That the police did not search Charles's rental car. Credibility. You are given a credibility instruction and you use it for everyone, including the defendant. You're told that you really evaluate people the same way. You're looking for any inconsistencies in their stories, any reasons why they may have a motive or bias to lie, any prejudice they may have, and then you look at everything in light of reason, common sense, and experience. When you think of the testimony of the people who come here and talk to you, Christina Atwood, Serena Sharp, Nancy Jo Hancock, Adam Cox, Dr. Bumgardner, the detectives, Robin Smith Scott, Mark Zari, what benefit do these people have in being untruthful to you? They have body cameras.
Yeah,
they
so
have
she's
prior
basically saying,
documents, and they have memories. of
why
what
would
this
all of the
person
people
said.
that got on the stand lie?
But the credibility of Lori
None of them have a motive or a dog in this
something that you
fight.
need to consider. And you start with her demeanor that day, where she wasn't worried about anything when she arrived. Her brother has allegedly been hit in the head with a bat by her husband, who plays semi-pro ball. She doesn't even worry about him. She knows he's not hurt. He's fine. And why does she know that? Because that was staged. When she's there and we see her on body cam arriving, she's just nonchalant and calm. And I know the defendant wanted to make sure that it was clear that everyone else was calm, but no one else had just allegedly seen their husband get shot and killed by their brother. When you were looking at the reasonableness of her testimony, you have to consider it in the light of reason, common sense, and experience. And the way that she was acting and reacting that day, as well as her own statements, do not fit the evidence, do not fit the physical evidence, and you will see her credibility throughout this whole case has been
It's not
questionable.
credible.
Her credibility with Social Security. What did we learn? That on July 11th, she tells
Dearest liver, I used to think all you did was filter alcohol. You actually filter everything.
Humbly repay you.
Delicious daily shot that promotes liver.
not truthful with Social Security when she got remarried. She did not tell them about that either. So we know she's been untruthful to Social Security twice.
Oh my God, this
That
prosecutor is
judging
like,
the credibility of Lori Vallow throughout all of this.
when is she going to do the mic drop?
We know that she said Charles was.
And that is why I want you to find Lori Vallow guilty of the charge against her, conspiracy to commit murder to Charles Vallow. Thank you.
Alex Cox intentionally shot Charles.
That's going to be your
Whether or
final
not she wants to
sentence.
claim it's self-defense or not, there was nothing accidental about shooting him twice. Then that second call to Banner Life Insurance, where she tells Robin Smith Scott a few different things to garner sympathy, and she asked her if she could do anything about the change in beneficiary.
And Lori hasn't objected to
I really
anything.
can't give too much information, but I can tell you that the beneficiary was changed in March of this year. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what he was doing since we have 5 kids and we've been married for 15 years. Oh, I'm sorry.
So Lori tells this woman, we have 5 kids, which if you want to count them all and admit that 3 of them are adults, then okay. Really, they have 1 kid in common. Tylee, you learned, was actually getting Social Security survivor benefits from her dad's death starting in 2018. Lori's son Colby isn't living with them. Charles' son's never lived with them. Why does she say these things? She can't help it. She just wants to just make herself seem better than she is.
Yeah, so
What about
Colby
the credibility of her
is
interview?
her grown son who has his own YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's a good channel.
And I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, 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 you know, the story. And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him and let him see what I've been doing.
So again, she can't even be honest and say 2 months. She's got to be like 30 days. I was kind enough to just leave my husband with my son for 30 days. What we know is that Lori Vallow was gone a total of 78 days, 58 while she's flying to Hawaii, going to Idaho and back with Chad. And
Yeah, not her.
who's taking care of JJ? Charles. And Kay is coming here regularly to help take care of JJ, to help run the business. And then eventually on March 28th, that's when Charles finally decides he hasn't been able to find Lori. He doesn't know where she is. He's going to move to Houston to be closer so his sister can help him more easily. And this is when Lori finally shows back up. So again, even the simplest thing of just trying to be honest about how long she's been gone, she has to minimize it and make herself seem better.
With your girl.
The shoes. Oops. Think this will play. When she was questioning Detective N-Clan, she was asking her if it was hot in July and if she would need shoes to go take her son to school. But of course, what we know is that we saw her with those shoes on as she went into Walgreens. So again, it's continued trying to garner sympathy and just being untruthful about whatever she feels like being untruthful about. And then we look at the credibility in that timeline, that body cam.
Well, you know, now that you're not in Santana, this is your home. Right, right.
So she returned from dropping off her son at school.
Gotcha.
Comes back, there's yellow tape around her house.
How long have you lived here? Like 3 weeks. Oh, geez.
And
Yeah,
she acts
okay.
like, oh my God, my
Gotcha.
bad. Again, doesn't read the room, the situation, the gravity of the situation. Oh my God, I hope the neighbors don't hate me.
Laughing and smiling with the detective about the fact that her husband is dead inside the house. Her brother is sitting on the curb, allegedly with this very serious injury from a baseball bat. When you look at that credibility of the defendant, you have to look at everything together and what fits, again, with the physical evidence and what doesn't. Finally, let's talk about the justification defenses. What we know is that Lori Vallow thought she was
She's taking it home. This is the last inning, she said, and finally,
That her brother,
and
who was supposed to
finally.
be like her, was also justified.
Have you heard of Dix.com?
Have I heard of Dix.com?
Under.
Oh shit, it's on mute.
First thing that you have to consider for every one of these, self-defense, defense of a third person, or crime prevention, is the non-justification for use of deadly physical force.
Yeah.
You are told if a person is not just, or a person is not just.
That was a bad
using or
excuse.
threatening physical force or deadly physical force against another in
Self-defense
response to
definitely a
verbal
bad
provocation alone.
excuse.
So Charles yelling and screaming at her to give his phone back does not justify you shooting him.
But this is a charge for Alex, who
Not
is
justified in using or
deceased.
threatening deadly physical force if the defendant or co-conspirator.
So I don't know why she's arguing this. This doesn't matter.
Attempted use of unlawful physical force. So
Lori's on trial for
here,
conspiracy
Lori
to
provoked Charles
for the
by
shooting.
taking his phone
She doesn't need to defend whatever Alex's actions were. She needs to defend
Look at every one of these defenses.
why
Not only do they not
he
apply,
did that. And
but none of them is the defendant.
his excuse was self-defense.
This is not self-defense. In self-defense,
But that's
we're
for
told that
Alex's
a person
charges, who
reasonable
is not here to defend himself because he's
can use
also
deadly
passed
physical
away.
force if they believed that deadly physical force was immediately necessary to protect against another's use or apparent attempted or
Okay, so
threatened
they're
use
definitely going to
of
break after
unlawful
this.
deadly physical force.
They're going to take an afternoon break. If they do closing statements for Lori tomorrow,
Then would have appeared
that would be
necessary
nice, because
to a
these
reasonable
jurors,
person situation.
they're going to be
We
exhausted.
know that Lori Vallow used Charles's phone to get him to come back inside, and she used his phone to keep him inside and give her brother time to come out and shoot and kill Charles. We know from the physical scene itself that Charles did not use a bat. We know from the physical evidence of Alex's 1-inch cut to his head and the lack of blood or concussion, the lack of damage to the mirrors, the walls, the location of the bat in relation to Charles. They all tell us that Charles did not use a bat. We know that Charles was a semi-professional baseball player. This would not have ended that way if he had had a bat. But even if you somehow think that he did have a bat and he was swinging it at Alex, the defendant, whoever, he still was not justified in shooting him when he was on the ground. It has to be immediately necessary to protect against another's use. When Charles is on the ground and he is shot that second time, there is no threat to anyone. And so that is not self-defense.
I rest my case.
Counsel, I need to give my court reporter a break unless you think you'll be done in the next 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
When we look at the physical evidence, again, we know that
He's all
Charles
wrap
was
it
on the
up.
ground, shot, and so this is not self-defense. And we know from the physical evidence at the scene, the projectile into the floorboard, this is not.
Yeah, I knew they were going to take a break. This lady's redoing the trial.
You're told that a person is justified in using or threatening deadly physical force in defense of a third person, I presume here Lori Vallow. If a reasonable person in this situation would have believed that deadly physical force was necessary to protect against another's use, again, of unlawful deadly physical force against a third person, and they used only what was necessary for a reasonable person under the situation. What do we know? Lori Vallow told Detective Enclam that she wasn't even in the room when she heard the shot, that she had gone around into the kitchen. Who's he protecting at that point? What third person that's no longer there is he protecting? You can't protect against a future, what might happen, or what already occurred. It has to be now. And Lori Vallow herself put herself outside the room when her brother shot Charles. So there is no third-party defense. But again, the same thing applies. Even if you thought so, that second shot removes any possibility of being justified.
Yeah, lady, we need a break.
Crime prevention. This is the exact same thing, only in a slightly different stated way. But like self-defense, it allows a person to use deadly physical force against another to the extent a reasonable person would have believed that deadly physical force was immediately necessary to prevent Charles from committing aggravated assault against
Let's see if
Lori
she
Vallow.
wraps it up in 5 minutes. It's already been a minute.
She's not in the room.
She's got 4 minutes.
Even if he had that bat and had been coming at her and then she left the room, that crime is over. And again, even if you believe he had the bat, you cannot shoot him while he's on the ground. That is not what crime prevention permits you to execute a person. Finally, there's mere presence. You're told that guilt cannot be established by a defendant's mere presence at the crime scene, mere association with another person at the crime scene, or mere knowledge that a crime is being committed.
I wonder if Lori did a PowerPoint presentation, because you could tell that the lawyer put this point. She needs to hire a graphic designer, because this PowerPoint presentation is
JJ was outside and she ensured
very
that Charles
basic.
stayed inside.
But I guess
She was
it
not
doesn't need to
merely
have
present.
much.
She was a person who was actively participating in this crime. Ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about the evidence in this case. Evidence that was presented to you through witnesses who took the stand and exhibits that were admitted for you to review. Remember the evidence of Lori Vallow's motive. Charles's life insurance, Chad Daybell. Remember Lori Vallow's own words of wanting to get rid of Charles, of drugging him, her acceptance of her brother's statements that he wanted to kill Charles, how she used Melanie and Summer to plan her mission and ensure that Charles didn't have help from Brandon or Zach or Adam. Her words to Alex about it all coming to a head, that he had to stay near her and they would be like Nephi, justified in killing Charles. And finally, her words to Chad Daybell on July 18th, confessing to the killing when she said Charles had changed the life insurance before we got rid of him. Look at her actions and demeanor, having her brother come over on the 10th to her house with the loaded
Ladies and
45
gentlemen, I need you to find
creating the one and
guilty
only reason why Charles
for
stayed inside
conspiracy
the
to
house,
commit murder.
why he didn't just
Say
send
it.
AJ to school. The 12 minutes that Charles is at the house before Lori leaves in the car, the 47 minutes after that before they call 911, her demeanor when she comes back, not caring that anyone has been hurt, her demeanor on the body-worn camera.
Okay, she's got a minute and a half.
What you heard about during the drive.
The judge gave her 5 minutes.
Think about her credibility, how she cried for you in her opening statement. You certainly didn't see her cry on that body camera footage.
Oh, shit.
You didn't hear about her crying as she was being driven to the Family Advocacy Center, and you did not see her cry.
I might be on American Cholo tonight, guys.
Finally, think about the physical evidence that proves that Lori and Alex staged this scene, that Charles was never in possession of that bat when he was shot by Alex, or either of the shots.
Make him go.
That instead he was executed that day for this defendant's benefit.
I might be on American Cholo tonight, guys. Oh, shit. Breaking news.
Beyond a reasonable doubt that Lori Vallow and Alex Cox were justified under the law in killing Charles. The jury instructions tell you to use reason, common sense, and experience. Charles Vallow is dead today because this defendant and her brother Alex Cox conspired to kill him. They planned it out, and they had their weapons, and they orchestrated a way to ensure that Charles was back in the house where he was shot.
Sorry, guys. I've been on live.
For money and Chad Daybell. The evidence proves to you that Lori Vallow Daybell is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and the state asks you to hold her accountable and find her guilty. Thank you.
Okay, she said the words, right?
All right, we're going to take our 15-minute afternoon recess. I'll remind the jurors to remember the admonition. We'll resume in 15 minutes.
That's a short break. Okay, guys.